Now, when does feminism meet culture? That's what we want to find out this morning. I'm joined in studio by filmmaker Sihle Hlope, who's documenting her own Lobola journey in her new film, Lobola, A Bride's True Price. She's questioning if she should allow her fiancé to pay Lobola for her. Also here is cultural activist Gogo Dineo Ndlazi. Happy Spring Day, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us. Sihle, let me start with you. What are you looking for, essentially, in this film?
I'm looking for who we are as a people, as Bantu people, our origins, and the importance of cattle to us, and then how Lobola then became important to us. And where does Lobola stand today? And how far has it come from what it was supposed to be to what it is now? And again, as a black woman, I do feel at times that there's a tug of war. If I question my culture, am I not being true to it? You know, am I being disrespectful to it? Or am I, or do I have the space to actually do that? So I'm interrogating my own journey, but also like the journeys of other young women, not only in South Africa, but in other countries as well.
Gogo Dineo, let's attempt to answer one aspect of the question. When we talk about Lobola, what are we talking about essentially?
I actually want to rectify, I'm not a cultural activist, I'm an African spiritualist activist.
Thank you for the clarification. We beg your pardon.
Yeah, so when we speak about Lobola, we are speaking about a bringing together of the two families, which includes several gatherings or several meetings, we know ultimately which leads to a transactional element of what is the price that we're going to exchange. But that's not the incremental part of Lobola. That's an additional part, because what is important in Lobola is to those two families who have come because there is these two people who said we want to spend our lives together, really are in sync and synchronized. Because when the families come, it's not only to serve their own personal interest, but to represent the interest of the two that have said we want to be one unit. Because in African, spirituality, we don't just marry the person, we're marrying into a family. Because Africans focus a lot on building family systems that can contribute to healthy community systems. So it's not about me and you alone, but it's about us bringing ourselves together into the family and the family building into the community.
Sihle, what was the conversation with your partner? Was it not obvious for you that we pay Lobola? I mean, growing up, that's what we are taught. We get into certain traditions that we see the elders doing.
I'll just give you a summary of my trajectory with this. I grew up believing that, yes, Lobola is the right thing to do. I'm going to do it. It's a way of honoring my parents, particularly my father. I didn't question that. Unfortunately, I lost my father in 2014. And that was also a catalyst to then begin that conversation with myself when my partner asked me to marry him, who would then receive this money. And then it became a thing of, uncles and elders would have the biggest voice in the room. And then I began to question like the patriarchal elements of it. And I'm in a position where I could say, some of the things that they use in that room, where they say, oh, she doesn't have children, oh, she's educated, those things could easily work in my favor. But I'm in a position where I felt, no, I have to question this. And again, as an African woman, do I have that space? And again, I hate it when they say being an African and feminism are separate. These two things for me are intertwined. And it's become so far removed from that I actually want to show people that that's not what it's about. And also want to see, where do the women get a voice?
Right.
Yeah.
Was this a difficult conversation to have with your partner, or was he very understanding?
My partner is an artist like me, so he's quite open-minded. But yes, it will have bearings on him, because in our society, if you're not married, you tend to be treated differently. For example, he's a Tswana man. What will happen in a likhotla or a meeting space where they say, no, only married people, or you haven't done this, or you haven't paid that, which means X, Y, Z, if he chooses not to do that. So in that realm of masculinity, yes, there would be questions about that.
Gogo Dineo, you spoke about the family element, but we look now in a lot of our families, and there's been a major breakdown. Sihle talks about uncles coming into a room and talking about her being educated, her being XYZ, but we also know that some people are very reluctant. Hence, you have websites such as hianduncle.co.za, just in case you know your family and you're like, I'm not comfortable with those people representing me. Spiritually, is there a bearing on whether you pay Lobola or not?
It's interesting because I never believed in Lobola until I understood the significance of the spiritual bearings of Lobola, because I also feel like our culture, that's why I don't say I'm a culturalist but a spiritualist, because it's quite infused with religious belief systems, and that's where patriarchy plays a role when it comes to Lobola. It then shifts from being about building a system of two people coming together to becoming about the man, because if we're seeing the man as a powerful, deeming the god the man, therefore everything revolves around the god, right? So the spiritual bearing of not doing processes such as Lobola, because it's one part of the ritual, it means that as the couple moved into the new union, they're not carrying their spiritual entities with to support the marriage. Because remember, as Africans, we understand that we're not just this body that we are working with, but we also have izinyanya or abapansi, who then help us and support us as we move on with life, as we transition from one space in our life to our other. If we transition from being, children to being teenagers to being adults and to being married people, then we carry them with us. So if we don't do those things, then the bearings are that we find ourselves in marriages that there is no solidity at a spiritual level, and then people struggle to connect. They loved each other, they're in love with each other, but something is amiss because steps have been missed, or the ancestors don't recognize the marriage altogether because we did this thing in a Western Union. So those are some of the implications.
Sihle, you are going to travel throughout the continent as well in search of, where this sort of tradition stems from and how other parts of the continent address it. What are you hoping to find specifically outside of South Africa? Because in as much as we're all Africans, we're very different in the way in which we do things.
Yeah. You find that in countries such as Chad, they'll use camels together with the cattle, and then as you come down in other countries like Nigeria, if we're looking at Bantu people, they'll use everything from cola nuts to bananas and goats and cattle as well. Then as you go further down, sometimes only cattle. And why? And that was part of our expansion. And what does it mean? And I also want to look at it within the context of different communities. For example, in Kenya, there are now matriarchal villages where women have said, we've been oppressed so much, we're going to live alone. In Uganda, you found that about 80 years ago, there was an island called Punishment Island, where women who fell pregnant without bride price being paid for were taken, literally exiled there and left to either die or to be taken by other men who weren't willing to pay bride price. And then you come, as you go down, you see different things. So I'm hoping to learn from all of that and go back to the origins of it, why we did it, because it wasn't for the transactional element, as Gogo is saying. And I have an issue as well where they say, for what I love most about Gogo Dineo, I told her, is that she doesn't look at the binary in terms of our ancestors. Yes, some things, there are implications, but we need to develop that relationship with them.
Gogo Dineo, you're saying you have an issue with the term bride price?
Yeah, because really what is Lobola in English? There's no term, because it was not a Western thing. It was an African thing. And I think we tend to focus a lot on the transactional element that we lose the other steps. Like when I said Africans build solid family systems for community systems, that if your immediate family falls apart, you've got other support systems that you deem as family that can be part of the negotiation of your Lobola, because it's not about the money, but we have made it about the money. Hence, we put a list of things that are necessary. My Lobola was negotiated with me, not in the room, but it's a conversation you have with your family, because you know your partner best, and you know that love is not based on money, because the essence of a relationship is built on, do you love each other? Do you want to be together? And the families that come together are there to support that ultimate mission. And once they veer off from the mission because there are these things that are seen as, your assets that are going to, accelerate the Lobola price, then Lobola becomes about the price. Because also the assumption is that women are binded by Lobola. Once you are Lobola, you can't get out of the marriage, because that was my thing when I was against it, that I don't want to be tied down. Things change in relationships. So I understood when I was taken in and another ritual was performed, I was told that you are not binded by this family. Should there be that this marriage cannot work or save you anymore, you come back, we'll do another ritual to undo what we have done. So I think as Africans, I love Sihle, we need to question, because without questioning, we're taking things on face value that are diluted by other belief systems that are deemed to be African.
Sihle, maybe this is something that you can also look at, but Gogo Dineo, this is a question for you. Where then does this element come in, where you fall pregnant by somebody? He has no intention of marrying you. You don't want to marry him, but the families come in and they say, okay, fine, you're going to pay damages for Umdanetu, but then ushiye encane for Lobola.
You see, the other thing, I have a problem again with the word damages. English dilutes the essences of what we do. It's not a damage. Inhlawulo. Inhlawulo speaks to the acknowledgement of paternity, because if we were for building stronger family systems, is that we would then live with the assumption that every child will be born in wedlock. But it's not so. Even in the 1800s, pre-colonization, that was not accurate, because things do happen. So Inhlawulo was a way of the father acknowledging that I have fathered that child and I want that child to be part of my family. It had nothing to do with the money or the price. It was a way of acknowledging. Then by acknowledging, then there would be an agreement of what would be an exchange that says that this child, because you're not wanting to get married, and that is okay, but you're saying that you want to be part of this child life. So what is the thing that will then say, I do acknowledge? What would be an act, whether that is a transactional act, whether that's cows being sent or goats being sent, an act that says, indeed, you are saying, or you are binding yourself to the paternity of the child. So we need to understand that sometimes once we term things, and we live in a universal world, we are part of a global context, so we can't run away from being part of the global, but once we have the globe dictate to us who we are as Africans, that becomes a problem, because then we're living according to those standards that says African culture is very oppressive towards women, and that's not accurate. Actually, African culture has been very matriarchal. We've always been for women, because when women were left behind to raise families, that was a huge responsibility. Because take a full-time mommy, for example, and look at their schedule. Not even a CEO can stand in those shoes. 100%. So it's those assumptions and perceptions that we need to challenge.
Thank you for that, because then, it's about how we term certain things, and because that's how we talk and you are used to it, and without actually realizing the significance of
and we're looking for generic
saying.
terms, because we're looking, because we don't have one African language where we can actually say Inhlawulo, what is it in Sesotho, what is it Kaspedi, or in Chivenda, that everybody can hear. So then we then say, because it says the child is damaged, it says the woman is damaged, and then what does it do? Again, it deems African culture very patriarchal.
Sihle, I'm curious to find out the response from your family. I can tell you, if I went to my family and I said, don't want Lobola or something, they're like, oh, really? That's nice. Take her out of the equation. Who's the husband or who's the potential? So what was the reaction from your family?
I found that on my maternal family, they were very supportive. I suppose it's because they know me. They know that I'm an artist, and I've always questioned the status quo. And even if I wasn't an artist, that's just who I am. It's in my blood to say, why does the sun rise in the east and not on the west? I want to know those things, On my paternal family, what's interesting is that they're based in Swaziland. And they said, Sihle, at the end of the day, Umswati, you must remember that although you're an individual, you exist within the family structure. And to them, in a lot of ways, I love them and respect them a lot, but they seem to deem the fact that I'm a strong woman, there's a binary. See, if the woman is strong, then it means the man can't be strong. How could a man who's strong allow a woman to even question such a thing? Whereas a woman who's strong and a man who's strong can coexist.
So, Gogo Dineo, you hear this a lot, where some men say we just don't know what to do with the women of 2018. This being an example where you question things and you no longer take things from face value. You want to know why it is that we'll put the chicken in the sun instead of in the microwave. So what kind of conversations do we need to be having as a people, going back to the entire family unit argument?
Now, black women have always been strong. It's an assumption that we're only getting stronger now. I think now we are giving given platforms and spaces to articulate and express ourselves, because it's not a thing about we've been meek and very submissive as black women. That we need to challenge. Just because we're occupying spaces that systems in place, including colonization and apartheid, deemed us less of value, right? And our men were also made to feel like they were boys. So when they walked into home spaces, they had to find a way in which they reclaim their manhood or their masculinity, and they had to act in a violent way as seen from what they've experienced in the mines. And I'm not saying that as an excuse, but in order for us to address some of the complexities around the issues that we experience as African families, as black families, we need to look at the historical impacts that we have experienced as Africans in order for us to start to address them in the present moment.
Sihle, final word. This is not just about your journey, but you're looking for other people to document their journey in terms of the whole process of Lobola.
Yes, I'm looking for couples in different settings. I am looking for same-sex couples as well. I'm looking for a couple that lives in the township where we've been dispossessed. We don't have the land anymore. What does it mean for those cattle? How have we used other things like trench coats and blankets to change the culture? So I'm looking for all kinds of couples that would be open to sharing their journey along with mine, which I'll also be sharing in the film.
Where do they find you?
They find us on Facebook, Lobola Bride's True Price. They can inbox us and on Instagram as well. And yeah, we can take the conversation from there. But we respect Lobola, and we will treat the subject with respect.
Thank you so much for coming through this morning. Feels like I just had a warm cup of coffee.